guys for joining me for another scarific segment of Tales from the Crypt coverage here on Enfuegotainment for the month of October. I am Jaime En Fuego, and here at Enfuegotainment I like to cover the hottest entertainment with an edge, and I don't think anyone can argue about how edgy and awesome Tales from the Crypt was in the 7 seasons that it aired. And so I was like, 93 episodes of Tales from the Crypt, 31 days in the month of October, what better than to go BUENO, MALO, and feo, which is the way I always structure stuff, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and watch 3 episodes a day. The math added up perfectly. So yeah, let's just get right into it, guys. So I must admit, this was one of the first times where I didn't really like any of these Tales from the Crypt episodes. I mean, they're all just kind of okay, but hey, I gotta give the distinction, and so the BUENO today is gonna be an episode called King of the Road. And the crazy thing about King of the Road and the other episode that we're gonna be discussing on here called Showdown is they were not originally Tales from the Crypt episodes. Yeah, kind of crazy. So there was a made-for-TV pilot put together by some of the same guys who did Tales from the Crypt, Robert Zemeckis and Richard Donner, and I think Walter Hill had something to do with it, or excuse me, Tom Holland. But yeah, so Tom Holland, Zemeckis, and Mr. Donner all got together and were like, let's do something inspired by the EC Comics Two-Fisted Tales, but let's make it, you know, like original stories as opposed to stuff based on the comics, which is what every single Tales from the Crypt episode up until this point was actually based on, you know, actual issues of the EC comic series. And so this time it was not. King of the Road was directed by Tom Holland, and we've spoken about him before on the show. He actually did one of my favorite episodes from the, probably my favorite episode of the first season, called Lover Come Hack to Me, which was possibly the best episode of the first season. And then he also did a couple others that I thought were just okay, like the Four-Sided Triangle, the one that had, what's her name, Patricia Arquette in it. So, but he did great films, you know, Thinner. I loved his TV adaptation of The Langoliers, the Stephen King story. I thought that was really, really solid. But so, yeah, here you've got a very young Brad Pitt, and he's like this hotshot street racer guy, and this is before Pitt got big. This was 1992, and so I think Cool World had just come out. People had seen Thelma and Louise already, but yeah, this was a pre-River Runs Through It release. River Runs Through It came out just a couple months later, and that was when people started to take notice and were like, okay, yeah, this Brad Pitt guy, I guess he can act. And then in turn, he went on to do like California and Seven, An Interview with the Vampire, and 12 Monkeys, and eventually cement himself as one of the biggest names in all of Hollywood. And then you've also got as the I guess the protagonist, with Brad Pitt being the antagonist street racer. You've got Raymond Barry, and this dude was in tons of stuff, from Born on the 4th of July, Mad City, he was in The Chamber. I mean, the list goes on and on, tons of flicks, but I always remember him from Do It Cox, Walk Hard, because the wrong kid died! Yeah, that's right. So, yeah, Raymond Barry's character is the Iceman, an aging street racer who's kind of in hiding for something, and he's police officing now. But, yeah, Brad Pitt comes and tries to stir the shizzle around, and he goes after him, and it's an interesting kind of dynamic between the two of them, but it's not scary. I mean, Two-Fisted Tales was not intent to be scary, you know, and when they debuted it on Fox, it was all one big television movie, and then after it kind of bombed and nobody saw it and nobody really seemed to care, they decided to chop up the episode we're about to talk about, which is called Showdown, this one, King of the Road, and then also Yellow, which was the one directed by Robert Zemeckis that we talked about just a couple episodes ago. So, yeah, this one, I mean, it's the BUENO because it's the best of the 3 episodes. Love the score by Warren Zevon, some of the original songs and stuff. I guess he did the entire, he did all the music for the episode too. But yeah, I gotta say, at the end of the day, it's just an average episode, but it is the best of the bunch today. So yeah, there you have it, King of the Road. It is today's BUENO for this particular segment here on the 16th installment of my Tales from the Crypt coverage. So let's jump into the MALO, yeah, and the MALO is actually gonna be the aforementioned Showdown, and you'd be really surprised to know. I mean, this was directed by Richard Donner. Everybody knows the extent of his work, Lethal Weapon, and, you know, Superman, all kinds of great stuff. Very capable director, very cool concepted episode. I don't know, and once again, this is not a bad, like a muy malo episode. It's just, it's okay, and I didn't enjoy it as much as the other 2 in this segment. So yeah, I gotta say it's just not that good, but it's not that bad either. It's just kind of forgettable. But I guess one of the only good things about it is that it is a Western, and I love Westerns, and so you've got this guy named Billy. He's kind of, seems like he's a Billy the Kid type, or at least that's what his character is based off of. I don't know. He's got lawmen after him, and he's going around, he's killing people, he's killing a lot of people, and he stumbles into a bar, and he takes a sip of some hooch, and then in turn starts seeing all of the people that he's killed, like appearing to him and coming and talking to him and giving him a hard time about how much of a butthole he was. And so, besides having Donner involved, you also had Frank Darabont, man. Yeah, Frank the Walking Dead Darabont, who also is an amazing director. I mean, The Green Mile, what else? Shawshank Redemption, The Mist. You know, me being a big Stephen King fan, I loved his adaptation of The Mist. And so these two had actually teamed together previously on a Tales from the Crypt episode called The Ventriloquist Dummy, which was a great episode, man. That was the one that had Bobcat Goldthwait in it and Don Rickles. And when we got to interview for the horror show, which is the full-on spooktacular show that I do, thehorrorshowchannel.com, you can find all that stuff. We talked to Mr. John Kassir, the voice of the Crypt Keeper, and he specifically mentioned Ventriloquist Dummy as one of his favorite episodes ever. And so you would think the reteaming of Darabont and Donner, it's going to be epic, right? But yeah, it was just at the end of the day, not very good. It was kind of mallow, kind of forgettable. It was cool to see David Morrison there. You know, my parents loved him on St. Elsewhere, and so did I. You know, and that was a great show. And he was also in The Green Mile. Yeah. So he was a protege of Mr. Darabont back here in 1992. But he's the lawman who's after our Billy the Kid type. Who, I mean, nobody's really gonna know him from anything except being like the ex-henchman homie of Chucky in the Child's Play movie, the first one. And so, yeah, at the end of the day, Showdown, which was also an original story, which was part of the Two-Fisted Tales, that was an abrupt, aborted pilot that never really did anything. It's the MALO today. It's the bad. It's just okay. So yeah, but less okay than the first one we talked about today. So I know this has been kind of a very boring episode, and for those who are thinking so, I apologize, but I'm supposed to be walking you through all this stuff, right? So lastly, we come to the Feo. Yes, that's right, the ugliness, the ugly sauce, as I would say. And today it has to do with an episode called Maniac at Large. And it's kind of funny because this one had Blythe Danner in it, and she's in real life the mom of Ms. Gwyneth Paltrow, but she's also probably most notably known for you know, being the mom on Meet the Parents, and so, yeah, that's what you'll probably all recognize her as. But she's a little bit younger here, and she's a librarian that's kind of obsessed with this killer, this maniac at large. And so she's reading all the headlines in the newspaper, and she's like totally paranoid, and she's getting tripped out thinking the killer at one point is Adam Ant, who's in the short. Yeah, she's thinking it's Clarence Williams III at one point, who everybody knows from the Mod Squad. But I honestly always think of, I want to talk to Samson, because yeah, he was the guy flying him to the moon like that bitch Alice Cramden. And but honestly, he's also familiar with the anthology horror territory because he's the storyteller in Tales from the Hood, yeah, which was inspired by Tales from the Crypt, obviously, hence the name. But yeah, Maniac at Large gets the Feo distinction because, I mean, it's pretty well acted, but the twist here is where the Feo comes into play. I had no idea that this was going to be the twist. You know, they give you, like, they lead you in one direction, they lead you in another direction, and once you finally realize what's going on in the very final frames of this, you're just like, wow, pretty good, I gotta say. And this saw the return of Mae Woods, who had scripted Cutting Cards, which is a great episode that had Lance Henriksen in it, and you know, really solid, and also did an episode that I did not think was very good called Deadline, which we talked about a couple segments ago as well. So, I don't know, Mae Woods scripted it. It was directed by John Frankenheimer, who did all kinds of big, just heralded stuff, including the original, the OG Manchurian Candidate in the 60s, and then he also did the remake of Island of Dr. Moreau, the one that had Val Kilmer and Marlon Brando in it. He also did Prophecy, which is a underrated 70s, late 70s film in my opinion. So, I mean, as I said, the Feo, the ugly in this is the twist that I sure as hell did not see coming. So, in any event, yeah, this is probably not one of my favorite segments that I've done, but as I said, I'm walking you through these episodes, guys. So, thanks for watching. I extend a grande gracias for that. Make sure to check out The Horror Show at the address below, thehorrorshowchannel.com, where I cover all kinds of spooktacular righteousness with my co-hosts Cecil Laird, Marsha Parker, and Susie von Slaughter, who you can see hosting Heavy Metal Television along with me. 28. So yeah, good times there. I've been Jaime En Fuego. I extend that grande gracias once more for y'all tuning in. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and obviously here on YouTube, just at Jaime En Fuego, as you're seeing it spelled below. So once again, guys, I will be back mañana with another installment of Tales from the Crypt coverage, and I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully the episodes will be better, and hopefully you will be tuning in as well. So until then, adios, amigos.